Welcome back to the All Sorts podcast, where we like to sift through the noise and dive deep, into the stories that matter.
Yeah.
So today we are tuning our frequencies to the world of hip hop.
Okay.
Specifically, the career of a man who's not only made music, but
Right.
built a legacy.
Yeah.
J. Cole.
Absolutely.
And before we get started,
Yeah.
make sure to hit that like button.
Yes.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on X, Insta, and Threads.
For sure.
It's like
Yeah.
building a cipher of knowledge, one listener at a time.
I like that.
So J. Cole has been making headlines recently,
He has.
calling out both Kendrick Lamar and Drake in his new track,
Yeah.
Hey to Antonio.
Oh, Antonio. It's definitely stirred the pot in the hip hop community.
And right, this deep dive is a chance for us to kind of rewind the tape
Yes.
on J. Cole's career,
Mm-hmm.
understand what led him to this point,
Absolutely.
and maybe glean some insights into where he's headed next.
Yeah.
So to kind of break down how we're going to do that,
Yeah.
we've got articles from Grammy.com,
Okay.
biographical info from Wikipedia,
Mm-hmm.
and coverage from the BBC
Right.
on this new track.
Yeah.
And the drama it's stirring up.
For sure.
So let's rewind all the way back
Okay.
to the beginning.
All right.
We're talking pre-Rock Nation,
Yeah.
pre-Platinum albums,
Mm-hmm.
back when J. Cole was just a kid from North Carolina.
Right.
It's a dream.
Just a kid with a dream.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he was born in Germany
Oh, really?
on an American military base, but
Oh,
North
yeah.
Carolina is where he really came of age.
Gotcha.
His path to fame wasn't really paved with
Right.
the typical industry connections.
Yeah.
He was a college graduate,
Interesting.
worked a 9 to 5 while he was grinding away at his music,
Oh,
releasing mixtapes like the come up
okay.
and the warm up.
So for those not super deep,
Right.
in the hip-hop world, could you explain what mixtapes represent
absolutely.
in the culture?
So think of mixtapes as an artist's proving ground.
Okay.
A way to build a buzz organically,
Yeah.
often outside the traditional music industry system.
Interesting.
They're like raw,
Right.
unpolished diamonds,
Gotcha.
showcasing an artist's potential
Yeah.
and giving them a direct line to their fans.
Cool.
That's how J. Cole built his initial following,
Okay.
and it eventually caught the attention of certain hip-hop mogul.
We're talking about Jay-Z, right?
We are.
Getting signed to Rock Nation is
Yeah.
a pretty big deal
Huge.
for any aspiring artist,
Yeah.
but especially for someone like J. Cole who came up through the mixtape route.
Absolutely. It was a pivotal moment.
Right.
Signing with Rock Nation gave him access to resources and a platform
For sure.
that many independent artists only dream of.
Wow.
And his debut album, Cole World, The Sideline Story,
Yeah.
didn't disappoint.
So it went well.
It shot straight to #1 on the Billboard 200.
That's a huge accomplishment, especially for a first album.
Yeah,
What was it about J. Cole's music
right.
that resonated so deeply with audiences?
Yeah.
Was it just good beats, or was there something?
So from the beginning, J. Cole had this knack for blending mainstream appeal
Okay.
with introspective lyrics.
Right.
It wasn't just chasing radio play.
Yeah.
He was telling stories,
Right.
sharing his perspective on life,
Mhm.
and touching on themes
Yeah.
that resonated with a generation
Okay.
coming of age in a complex world.
Gotcha.
Take a look at the progression of his albums, and you'll see this evolution unfold.
So his second album, Born Sinner,
Yes,
continued that upward trajectory.
it did.
Did it follow the same formula?
So with Born,
Or did he switch things up?
we see J. Cole going deeper,
Okay.
getting more personal.
Interesting.
There's a rawness and vulnerability
Yeah.
that wasn't as prominent
Right.
in his debut. It's like he
Wow.
was shedding a layer, letting listeners into his inner world.
And then came 2014 Forest Hills Drive,
Yes.
an album that seemed to really solidify his place
Yeah,
in the hip-hop landscape.
absolutely.
What was it about that particular album?
2014 Forest Hills Drive was a concept album
Okay.
centered around his childhood home,
Right.
a place that obviously held a lot of significance for him.
For sure.
But it wasn't just nostalgia.
Right.
It was a reflection on his journey,
Yeah.
his struggles, his growth.
Right.
It resonated with listeners because it felt authentic,
Yeah.
relatable,
Okay.
like a glimpse into the heart and mind
Right.
of someone who had achieved success,
Yeah.
but hadn't forgotten where he came from.
Right.
It wasn't just a house, it
Yeah.
was a stumble.
And critically, it was a huge success, too.
Right.
Did that album mark a shift
It definitely.
in how people viewed J. Cole?
solidified his status as a serious artist.
Okay.
Someone who wasn't afraid to experiment and push boundaries. 2014 Forest Hills Drive proved he could make music that was both commercially successful and critically acclaimed.
Yeah, it's like he found that sweet spot.
He did. And he continued to explore new territory with For Your Eyes Only, an album that moved beyond his personal experiences to tackle broader social issues and give voice to narratives that often go unheard.
That's an interesting turn. It seems like he was using his platform to amplify other people's stories. Was that a conscious decision, or was it just a natural evolution of his artistry?
I think it's a bit of both. As artists mature, their perspectives widen, they become more aware of the world around them, and their work often reflects that in J. Cole's case, it seems like a genuine desire to use his influence for something bigger than himself.
And then came KOD, which dove into some really heavy themes like drug abuse, addiction, depression, and even greed. Was that a departure from his previous work, or was it a continuation of a thread he'd already been exploring?
It was definitely a continuation, but it also felt like a culmination of sorts. A distillation of the wisdom and introspection he'd been developing over the years. KOD wasn't just about pointing fingers or preaching. It was about grappling with complex issues and inviting listeners to do the same.
So it seems like J. Cole's musical evolution has been marked by this increasing depth and willingness to tackle difficult subjects. But his impact extends beyond music, right? He's also a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist.
Absolutely. He founded Dreamville Records not just as a business venture, but as a platform to nurture and showcase emerging talent. The Dreamville compilation albums, Revenge of the Dreamers, are a testament to that vision. Gathering hundreds of artists and producers for those projects speaks volumes about his leadership and the respect he commands in the industry.
Yeah, that level of collaboration is incredible. It's almost like he's creating a movement within a movement. But what about his philanthropic work? You mentioned the Dreamville Foundation earlier. What's the driving force behind that?
It's about giving back to the community that shaped him. The Dreamville Foundation focuses on empowering underprivileged youth in his hometown of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He's also made headlines for purchasing his childhood home and turning it into a rent-free haven for single mothers and their children.
That's a powerful statement. It's one thing to donate money or lend your name to a cause, but to invest so personally in your community sends a different message altogether. It's like he's saying, I haven't forgotten where I came from, and I'm committed to creating opportunities for others.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the elephant in the room, J. Cole's recent comments on Port Antonio and his take on the Drake and Kendrick beef.
Right, this is where things get really interesting. He was part of that big three narrative himself, right? There was a time when Drake, Kendrick, and J. Cole were considered the top tier of hip-hop, the ones pushing the boundaries and shaping the future of the genre.
It was a media-driven narrative, but it reflected a real shift in hip-hop. These three artists, each with their unique style and approach, were dominating the charts in the conversation.
And then, of course, Kendrick seemingly dismissed that notion, claiming there was no big three, just big me. It seemed like a power move away to assert his dominance.
And initially, J. Cole seemed to side with Drake, but then he pulled back, even apologizing for a diss track aimed at Kendrick now in Port Antonio. He's suggesting that he walked away from that beef because he saw where it was heading, a path fueled by ego and greed.
It's like he's calling out the darker side of the industry, the pressure to compete, to chase clout and money, even if it means sacrificing your integrity or your relationships.
What's fascinating is that he seems to be reflecting on his own role in this dynamic, admitting that lines were crossed, and maybe even regretting some of his past actions. He's not just pointing fingers, he's looking inward too.
So where does this leave J. Cole in the hip-hop landscape? He's achieved massive success, he's given back to his community, and he's even called out some of the industry's biggest names. What's his legacy at this point? Is he a revolutionary, a contrarian, or something in between?
It's too early to define his legacy definitively. He's still an active artist, still evolving and challenging himself, but what's clear is that he's carved out a unique path, one that prioritizes substance over hype community, over competition and integrity, over blind ambition.
So he's not just making music. He's making a statement. He's using his platform to challenge the status quo and inspire a new generation of artists to approach hip-hop with a different mindset.
And that's what makes him so compelling. He's not afraid to be vulnerable to speak his mind, even if it means ruffling some feathers. He's a reminder that true artistry isn't just about talent. It's about using that talent to make a meaningful impact on the world.
So he's not just making music. He's making like a statement.
Right.
He's using his platform to challenge the status quo and inspire a new generation of artists to approach hip-hop with a different mindset.
And that's what makes him so compelling. You know, he's not afraid to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
to speak his mind, even if it means ruffling some feathers.
Right.
He's a reminder that true artistry isn't just about talent. It's about using that talent to make a meaningful impact on the world.
So we've explored his journey from mixtape artist to Rock Nation Cine.
Right.
His growth as a lyricist and producer,
Yeah.
his commitment to community and social impact, and his willingness to challenge the industry itself.
For sure.
It's a pretty remarkable arc.
It really is. And it raises a question, what does J. Cole's career?
Yeah.
Tell us about the state of hip-hop today.
Right.
Is there room for artists who prioritize substance over spectacle, who use their platform to spark dialogue and inspire change?
That's a big question.
It is.
It seems like hip-hop is at a crossroads.
Yeah.
With one path leading towards commercialization and virality, and another path leading towards a more conscious, community-driven approach.
Right.
And J. Cole seems to be straddling both worlds.
He does.
He's achieved mainstream success without sacrificing his artistic integrity. And he's used his influence to shed light on social issues and empower the next generation.
Absolutely. So maybe he's a blueprint.
Yeah.
A model for how to navigate the complexities of the music industry without losing sight of your values.
Right.
Or your roots.
Yeah, I think that goes beyond stats and awards.
It does.
It's about the intangible impact he's had on the culture.
Yeah.
The conversations he started, the way he's redefined what it means to be a successful hip-hop artist in the 21st century.
And it's a conversation that's far from over. You know, his willingness to challenge the status quo, to call out hypocrisy, and to push the boundaries of what hip-hop can be, makes him a truly unique figure in the genre.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the career of J. Cole. We've explored his musical journey, his business ventures, his philanthropic work, and even his foray into professional basketball.
Right.
It's been a fascinating exploration of a complex and multifaceted artist.
He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Who knows what he'll do next?
Yeah, and if this exploration of J. Cole has sparked your own curiosity, be sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube.
Yes.
And follow us on X, Insta, and Threads.
For sure.
We're always on the hunt for the next deep dive.
Absolutely.
The next story that deserves to be unearthed and shared. Until then, stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay engaged and keep those vibes high.
Keep those vibes high.